Any for me?
Andrew is my coach and mentor in the AAA Accelerator community, and he helps me to build my offer and come to better business relationships, to build and structure my business attitude and mindset, and also to make practical steps to get in better business relationships and offers and sales. So, Andrew, what is your take on the structure of first call with potential client? So, for example, I have one client who is more or less interested, but I want to meet him for the first time. And what can you give some structure for the first call where I want to sell him my tech solutions?
Yeah.
But sometimes he is not very technical. So he understands his business, his numbers, the dollars, and he has website, some sales. But I want to explain to him and try to convince him that I am the one who he can work with. So can you help me with this?
Absolutely, found. Yeah, absolutely can. So I think it's really important, and there's a lot of context there, which is really good. So thanks for me a bit of something to work with. So I always tell people, like, first things first is you've got to remember, like, you don't even know if that person's right for you. And having that mental attitude in the back of your head where it's like, it's not about just selling, it's about finding out if the customer is right for you as well as if you're right for them. It's a mutual relationship business. And what tends to happen is we get overexcited that we've got a sales call and everyone goes in with I need to get this client on. I need to sell this as much as I possibly can. I'm going to tell them about how great my solution is and then overdo it on the first call. Think of it like dating. Like, imagine on dating, if you met up with someone on the first date and then you just spoke about yourself for the entire day. Person's obviously not going to get a great impression about, a mutual relationship if you just talk about how great you are. And that's exactly the same structure you really want to take into a sales call, especially with someone that's non-technical. The truth is, always, and it doesn't make a difference if you're dealing with a technical person or a non-technical person, what makes someone who is very trustworthy, someone who is an expert, someone who people generally lean into, is someone who can take something that's technical and explain it in the most basic of forms. So whatever your solution is, it's not how you want to sell it. You want to basically, first of all, find out what their problem is. Like, what is it that has led them to have this curiosity in taking action and booking the call? I like to start a lot of my calls off with a nice storytelling frame, which is, look, can you walk me through what it was that led you to take action in booking this call with me today? Now, the reason I like doing that is because it invites them to tell a story. And when people tell stories, they generally unload a lot of layers. They give far more context or information, more knowledge, more details. And then from that, we can pluck the pain points. We can pluck the areas that we feel like we need to basically be used, to use for our solution. But even at that stage, it's really important to know that's not where we're meant to talk about our solution. A lot of it is still just listening and asking questions and really diving into it. So I'll run through a quick structure of kind of like how I do the initial call. And then, we can kind of discuss it out and kind of go from there. So first things first, whenever you meet someone, doesn't make a difference, set a frame. And a frame is an agenda. Make sure you make it very clear what the meeting is about, so you can offer clarity on what you can always remind them of the reason that they're kind of sat in the position they're in. I love to kind of go into these being like, look, hi, Mr. Prospect or Mrs. Pitt. Thanks for joining me today. So the aim of today's meeting is it's going to be a 30-minute meeting or 30-minute chat just to understand if I can even help you. This is more just a conversation of just seeing where you're at the moment. And then if I've got a solution that works or I can think of something that could work for you, then we can kind of run into that. Does it sound good? By doing this, I lower the guard. I get the defenses down. I get all of those initial, this is just someone who's going to sell to me for half an hour, to actually, no, they're interested in finding out a bit more about me. Then I go straight into my storytelling question. Walk me through, help me understand is another good way of starting this. Help me understand, what was it about? Anything I posted about, or, that specific LinkedIn post or the video that you saw that led you to take action in booking today's call or jumping on a call with me. From there, as I said, you get the pain points, you get all the little nuggets of information, but then you stay in it. You really want to make sure that whatever you find, for example, someone says, they're spending hours doing a manual task. Sales is about understanding logic and emotion. Logic is, okay, well, look, this person's doing something. that they're spending hours on every single week. Emotion is, okay, what would they be doing if they weren't doing that? You know, would they be spending more time with their family? Would they be able to do other activities that would mean that their business grows faster? And in sales, we tend to rush to the logic and not find out the emotion. So I wouldn't move on. I don't even discuss a solution. I'm not even interested in selling anything about me until I find the emotion behind what benefit that would have. And then the last question I ask them when I find that is, cool, tell me why it's important to get this fixed. By asking why it's important, I reinforce that pain point's need for a solution. So now when I come in with a solution, which I might or may not have, I don't even know, suddenly it's all relevant. It's not just me going, hey, I've got this great AI automation that can do this. I've got an AI automation that I believe can help you with what you've just said. And I know you said this is important to solve because of this reason. So this is why I want to implement this AI solution. How does that sound? And that's it. That is my my nugget of kind of like a cool structure from it. How does that sound?
Yeah, Andres, thank you a lot. I take always some nuances. Although I know I listen to many people, and also I did a lot of calls, but I think still that I'm a beginner. And I also was hired as a sales coach for my a client who I make them AI automations, and they
Nice.
ask me to give sales coach calls for their members and listen to their calls, to their phone calls. But mostly they have incoming calls. They don't have outbound, usually incoming calls, but I listen. And there are some things that I notice. So first thing that I think quite important, that people don't refer to their client by phone by name. And I think name is important because
Agreed.
everybody's a little bit, especially nice girls, so they have very womanish voice, very calm and inviting. So I think I told them, just call this person by name. Usually they don't ask the name. They didn't even quote their names, but I taught them so that they should always give their name. And clients, usually male clients, they call their by name and they like it. And I think the first thing is you should bring a little bit emotion whenever appropriate. Of course, you can sense whether the people is good when you call him by name. But another thing that I mentioned to them is to give mirroring technique from Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference book. Chris Voss.
Brilliant book. Exceptionally very good book.
So there are two things that I use them. I tell first, the client should understand that you hear him well and you rephrase his statement in your words, just repeating what he said, gives a mirror. So I want to do this done. I lost like $20 million last year. Oh, you lost $22 million. There was experiment in restaurant waiters who, one of them, the one part just said, client says, I want sandwich. And said, okay, good choice. And another one said, oh, you want sandwich. So they reassured him and mirrored, and they get like the 50% more tips, 50% more tips, because people are more happy when they hear that you understand them, that you don't listen, and then they don't understand. And it's usual for many talks that I listen to, that people tell their problems or their situation, and the manager, okay. Even there are some pauses, so client even doesn't know whether he should speak or not. Other thing that Chris Voss is mentioning is the labeling. So if person explains in many words his storytelling, and then you can label his emotion, label his situation. So you say, so you have problem in this, so you have trouble with this, with sales funnel, you have a low conversion rate or high churning of like your regular customers. So you have understood the problem, and you label emotion or the problem. And the third one is very important for myself. I think this is crucial for me. Although I'm quite intensive on emotions, so I can just keep the people talking, and I also quite an emotional person. But the thing that I miss, I think, is the depth of voice. That is what I think you have nice voice as well as Eric. So I listen to Eric and I think, oh, how can I make
He's
this
got that
voice?
late night DJ voice absolutely mastered, hasn't he? He's
Late
absolutely
night.
got that down to the T with it, which obviously Chris Voss is very big. But the one thing I would say with Chris Voss is all of the points you've just mentioned there make a big emphasis about listening and not talking. They're huge on basically making sure that it's listening and not talking, which the fundamental thing for me in sales is it's not about you. You need to get your ego. You need to leave it at the door with it. But I'm a big fan of Chris Voss's. I get asked. I think it's probably my second, third most asked question. Is people always go, "What sales books do you recommend?" And I'm quite honest with people. I'm like, I'm one of those where it's better to read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, 100 times than try and read 100 books. It's better to master one book that you know is reliable and really, really good than try and learn 100 different strategies that contradict each other, and you'll end up with a like analysis paralysis in a way of trying to work out who's right and who's wrong. Chris Voss's book, you know, is it, and the one tip I would give with that mirroring is my wife will probably throw plates at me now if I try it, but there was a good stint where I was basically practicing it on her and people that I knew, and I would do it so frequently that it became second nature to me. And they would never work. And my wife didn't have a clue what I was doing. She just thought I had hearing issues. But what was really good was it made that when I jumped on the sales course, it was second nature. I wasn't having to think about it. I would just do it. And then again, once I was doing it, I was getting to deeper layers with my prospects because they understood that I was listening to them. I was labeling whatever problems there were. They were justifying things. And when people justify things, they often explain the bigger, you know, those deeper layers of why they're saying it. So yeah, I cannot agree with you more in the sense of kind of those three tips that you've just mentioned there.
So that's great that you recommend this book because that was one of the questions that I would ask you about the books. So I will quote another book that Give and Take, but by Adam Grant, Give and Take. So I have this book.
I'll have to write it down.
Do you know
not
this?
one that I've...
Let me check it. I have it somewhere. So this is the book.
Perfect. I'll add that to my Audible. Yeah, that'll be on my run later on, probably later on today or tomorrow. I'll give it a go. I'm, again, big fan of it. Tell me why you like them. What do you like about Give and Take?
So the people are, so he labels people on three categories. And one of the category is taker. So the one who speaks about his interests and every deal, first he understands whether he will win or not. The other one is a giver, and giver is the one who doesn't expect anything, who just very free, very inviting, and so he can give a lot of free consultation, some free products. And there are people who are matchers. So most people are matchers, so they have some percent of them from givers, some from takers. So each relationship is weighed on the scale of give or take. And there was one interesting research how like most people who has larger salary, people who are takers or people who are givers. And so usually most givers have less salary because they work like for free, they work for many people, they don't expect result, they don't expect high salary. And takers are like legal guys, $300 per hour, and so they are usually more strict with any relationship. You ask me questions, you owe me $300. You know, this kind of guys. But then he found out there is another league of elite people who are above these guys, completely other levels of salary. And this is levels of people who are givers. So people who are very, very open, who want to give more than they take. And it's a whole book about this psychology and philosophy. And I think it correlates very tightly, to the cycle of sales. It relates to the cycle of continuous sales. So whenever you can make exemplary sales call, and you can like sell for 5,000, 2,000, 10,000, but then there will be a continuous give and take. So you give something, you take something, and you should, in my opinion, there should be understanding for the client so that you over deliver. So you under promised and you over deliver.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is kind of thing that you should also, in my opinion, so we do all the time. Also, many times we do many things for free, but we want to give something in advance, and also some audit or going something deeper into their situation to check something, even spending some time. And I know that Liam Motley told that at first stage of Morningside, the team made a lot of giving, but people then started taking advantage of it and asking them for the search and don't pay and don't close contracts. So now they changed the station. So what is your take on giving and taking at this stage and later stages?
Yeah, I think it's more, I think when you're starting out, you've got to make the most of People get carried on. So there's a big thing, which is when people start their businesses, their expectations often are the highest. And actually, that is good because that's what's going to give you the kind of motivator to keep going and like really kind of see that this is maybe a lifestyle change. This is going to give you a lot. The downside to it is people have expectations of like they're going to make disgusting money, silly internet money from it. You've got to remember when you start, it shouldn't just be currency in capital that you're earning is a way that you're actually making money. You should look at it as going, I can do something for free for somebody, but what I'm getting back from this is a huge amount of knowledge in how I communicate with a customer, how I can build this project, the systems I can build around it that mean that when I do it next time, it's going to take me maybe half the amount of time or even more. So giving at the start, don't worry about, it sounds really ridiculous, but don't worry about the money. Give as much as you possibly can to people. Don't worry if they feel like people are taking advantage of you. What you're getting is a lesson that is a really, really valuable one, which is you're understanding first of all, is this something you even want to do? The amount of time I see people set up a business on the idea of a business, start working with a client and then realize this isn't as fun as I thought it was. Why am I not earning, this $100,000 deals? Why am I not getting all of these? Well, let me tell you, every single person that I know that has got the $100,000 deals or the $60,000 deals or the $40,000 deals, all of them had a period of time where they were doing something for so little cost, but they were learning during that period. They were making the most of understanding everything, becoming an expert in it. So I think when you start, giving is so key. Like giving is absolutely top priority. Just offer as much as you possibly can. If you bump into, so when I started, I was doing stuff for my CrossFit gym, and people would just people would just go, cool, can you just tell me a bit about AI? And I'd be like, cool, I'll sit down with you for a coffee, 15 minutes. Then I was doing 3 projects. I was doing all this. At no point I was sat there being like, oh, I should be earning money for this. This is a joke. Don't get me wrong. When you get to the stage of taking is when you're valuable and you can get away with it without it coming across as rude. That's why Morningside could do what they can do. They built a name for themselves. They've got an established thing, and you don't want to get taken advantage of at that stage. So for me, yeah, I think you're right. There's stages in your sales journey where you need to work out what is the case. But my advice would be when anyone's starting out, there's loads of terms you can agree to, well, look, how about I give it to you for free for 3 months? And then if it's good, then I'll come in and ask for a price, give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's let's talk about the qualification of. I want to give and give, but sometime I want also to take because I have to support my family, and so there are many things. So, what is your when should we switch from talking to everyone and booking any calls possible and going to pre-qualifying clients and going more selective about how to spend your time and energy on your meetings, on meeting new people, and maybe also considering speaking more to people who I already know?
Yeah. I think there's never it changes for every single person. I think a huge part of it is about confidence. I think you've got to be able to understand the moment that you change that from giving to taking and you're qualifying and asking for money, you are inviting pressure and responsibility onto your shoulders. And if you're somebody that feels like you're not ready for that, you've got to ask yourself, is this my defense system? Is this my defense system going, trying to hold me back, fear effectively holding me back? Or is it that maybe I'm behind on the tools? Maybe I'm not where I need to be to start asking for money. If it's the one, if it's the latter, if it's the one where you're like, I'm not ready, best way you can do this is just going, cool, why don't I just quickly try and do it? Or try and see, how I would do it. If you can do it, then yeah, ask for money and stuff like that. But if you're still on the fence, cool, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer it to you on a basis of like, I'm going to try doing it, but then I'm going to offer maybe like a guarantee. So if it doesn't work out, I can walk away and I don't have the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but I still at least have the opportunity. I'm not closing the door on it. But I do think it's individual preference. And I think the other thing as well is understanding how much to give and then how much to do. I would never do a huge project. We're talking about anything really over a month to 3 months worth of development and meetings and all these things for free. I would do something that's like, if I'm looking at a big project, I'm kind of getting an idea, I would try finding something that is like a quick win that's going to take me 48 to 72 hours. I would do that for free to build confidence in them and confidence in myself, and then I would look at the bigger project. When it comes to qualifying, I think a lot of people, you shouldn't be doing things for free if they're taking huge times, because you're really affecting, like you mentioned, your family, your personal time, and all these things on a project that's not giving you returns. Those projects you should be charging for. But if you're needing to build your confidence up, just start doing small little ones, 72-hour ones, 48-hour ones, and with it. And my last point on qualification is ask for testimonials, ask for feedback, ask for reviews, ask for this. And the reason why I say this is sometimes the person that's going to reinforce you the most is going to be someone else. Sometimes in your head, you cannot give yourself the, oh, I'm really good at this. The second you get a review from someone else, your confidence goes up, and then now you feel more likely to charge. Now you feel like you want to charge. Now you feel like you can do it. So always ask for this, just so you can kind of get that ego boost from them, which is healthy.
You see, one of the advantages and benefits that I get from the community, from the accelerator program is first, all the great connections, networking, and ability to talk to you, to Shreya, to Eric, to Darren, to Gary Latos, to James Latos. Today I talked to James
Nice.
Latos before you. And so many people, and also great community. So I think that this experience and confidence of getting into the higher league of entrepreneurs is very important. So what do you recommend? How to boost a person's confidence and mindset? What kind of tools, the learning process, the practicing, and the balance? So how to build a mindset and confidence to do the successful sales calls and successful business.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you make a really good point. Your environment is big. Being surrounded by people who are facing the same challenges and all these things that you get is really good, because then you realize that you're not alone, but you also realize that your skill level might be higher than where you're rating it. I remember I joined a sales team a couple of years ago that I went in to go and work with. And I remember when I joined there, I sat down, I was like, oh no, I'm going to be like the worst person. And I excelled really quickly. And I realized that the standards I had previously that trained me was actually really quite high. And you put yourself in a different environment, and then you suddenly realize, when you're surrounded by yourself by other people, where your skill level is and how good it lies. So environment's big. Being in a community like you mentioned, with entrepreneurs, like-minded people who are doing stuff, gives you a good idea of kind of measuring where you're at. The second thing, I'm gonna butcher the quote, and I really apologize to whoever it was, but there's someone, I think it's Chris Willis, that says it's like, confidence isn't built by shouting affirmations at a mirror. You know, if you get up and just talk to the mirror and just say I'm great and all these things, that doesn't build confidence. Confidence is building basically undeniable proof of what you say is what you can do. So if you're saying I can do this specific AI automation and do this, solve this problem for a client, you're never going to get confidence at just talking about it. Just do it. And if you fail, so what? Failure is the best thing that can happen to you, because if you fail, you'll go back and do it again. And when you do it, your confidence will be the highest it can be, because you've overcome something. You've built something, you know, you've taken on a challenge and done it. When I look back at my life, when I was the most confident, I ran a marathon. I'd never run anything before. I didn't even do like a park run. I never ran 5K. And then I just said, you know what? I'd rather book something and train towards it. That's the hardest it can be. I probably could have gone for an ultra or an Ironman. When I did it, I said to the wife, I was like, it's just an unridiculous boost of confidence of realizing if you generally just put your mind to something and overcome it, you realize that it's not just that one thing you can overcome. It's pretty much most things you can do.
Yeah, that's also for me. I'm at 51 years old. I'm more confident that I can go through many things that I was very afraid at 20 years ago. And I think that most people who are going from corporate jobs, from regular jobs to entrepreneurial things, they're afraid that they will have nothing to eat, or they will not be able to pay their bills. So they don't understand the landscape of the job market and the, the gigs architecture. So many things today are also, all the jobs and money are distributed by different small tasks, small jobs. And if you are like one concept that I liked a lot from, I think it's from Tim Ferriss in my younger years, though that a usual per person, he waits for his salary once per month. But as entrepreneur, you get several salaries per day. So now I measure the quality of my life, but how many sales I can do per day. And I have a little small streams of income, but they combine to make me happier and more confident. So I understand that even if I don't have the job, but I can have a lot of small things, sell something and do some sales calls. What do you recommend for people who are like, and even for myself, because this fear, this comes from time to time. Something doesn't go well. How to fight your fear of being not in the right spot, and after maybe 10 unsuccessful sales calls, and you see that your offer is not good, and you feel that the future is unsure. So what do you do in this time of unconfidence, and do you have these waves as well?
I do, and it's really important. But one thing I've learned, and it has been probably the most fundamental bit of advice I was ever given, and I've shared it with other people, and everyone responds well to it, is comparison is the thief of joy. And what I mean by that is, the reason why we feel down, the reason why we feel like we're not doing enough, the reason that we feel like not very confident in what we're doing, the reason we feel like we're not where we're meant to be, is because we're often comparing ourselves against other people who are not at the same stage as us. And because of that, then we start doubting our offer, we start doubting our sales ability, we start doubting all these things. So comparison is the thief of joy. The second that you start comparing yourself to someone else, you're never going to look at like in a positive light. You're going to start thinking negatively on yourself. You're going to start doubting yourself. You're going to start doubting everything you're doing. So for me, the biggest bit of advice I say, and I say it to everyone, is only measure against what you are in control of and measure against yourself. If you are not getting very good at sales calls, don't compare yourself against the person that's doing loads of good sales calls, that's maybe spent 10 years doing sales and has mastered it. Instead, compare yourself against, how long have I been doing this? Okay, well, I've only been doing this for a month. Cool. How would I rate myself at where I was a month ago to where I'm at now? Am I better? Well, yeah, actually, I remember my first sales call. I'm horrifically bad compared to where I'm at now. Suddenly, the comparison is a benefit to me. It's actually giving me joy. It's making me realize that I'm moving forward, rather than if I was to compare myself. And there are tons of people that are significantly better at sales than me. You know, there are people that are like Harvey Specter from Suits when it comes to selling. And if I compare myself with them, I'd be miserable. But actually, if I just compare myself against how good I was at sales a couple of years ago to where I'm at now, I'm significantly better. I know so much more. Yeah, to kind of answer your question back about it, at times whenever I feel doubt or anything, I try finding what the source is. 9 times out of 10, it's because I'm comparing. I'm setting expectations that are unreasonable for where I'm at. And then I look at those expectations and realize where they came from, and then I compare it against myself, and that's it from it. Matthew McConaughey, I don't know if you've ever seen it, and I recommend anyone to watch it. When he won the Oscars, he did an amazing speech, and someone basically advised him and asked him, you know, who's your hero, who you chase? And he was like, oh, I don't know really, and come back to me. But he was like, ask me in 10 years who I am. And he realized that his hero was always him, but he was never going to catch up with him. And the bit I love about it, and I've used it in my own life, is you're not measuring against anyone else. You're measuring against yourself. We're all in this race together. We're all in this life together. But the person that we should only really be competing against is ourselves. Don't compare against any others.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And I want to ask about maybe you. I think there is a book, autobiography book about Matthew McConaughey that is quite popular.
Green Light, yeah.
Now, so maybe can you quote, apart from like popular, like everybody knows Alex Hormozy, and now Chris Voss is also often quoted, but maybe there are some other system, or maybe your personal coach or some sales book or coach that help you has most impact on your way of thinking.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I'll stick on theme with Matthew McConaughey. I'm a big fan of him. So 2 things, there's either a book or if you don't want to read the book, he's done a lot of talks. He says a lot of the same things on these talks, but he did one which was at a graduation ceremony. And I won't quote the whole thing because I said there's lots of things in there. Go and watch it for yourself. I strongly recommend it. But one thing that he did say is, we can end up spending a lot of our lives not sure about what we want to do or who do we want to be, who do we want to be in all these things. And he says the easiest way of finding out what you want to do or who you want to be isn't thinking about who you want to be and what you want to do. Do the opposite. Start asking yourself the question of what you're not, what you don't want to do, what you don't want to be. And it sounds really weird, but by doing that and eliminating all the things that you're not, you're going to get to what you actually enjoy very quickly. And you don't get overwhelmed with the opportunities of everything. And instead, you really focus on what you actually enjoy doing. So for me, that's the bit of advice I would give to anyone is, stop trying to think necessarily of every opportunity. Try focusing on what you're not and really hone in on those areas. Is a harder list to create. Where if I just said, write down all the things that you don't want to do, you'll go through that list really, really quickly. You'll start writing out all of these really, really fast. So like, no, I don't want to speak to these people. I don't want to speak to these people. I don't want to speak to these people. But by doing that activity, you'll generally find yourself.
I think it correlates to Charlie Munger system of opposite. What if completely go from the other side, project the negative to what you want to achieve. The negative, what happens is completely negative. What happens with this? And so I think that is also correlated to Stoic principles of thinking premeditatum malorum. When you think about all the atrocities, all the bad things that can happen in your life, and then you prepare for it, and then when it happens usually not to the same stage like it was in your mind. So I think
100% agree. Yeah, we build things up as much as possible, unfortunately, in our lives, and we never look. Very rare you meet people with a positive outlook. It's funny that whenever we meet someone with a positive outlook, we praise them for having it. There's nothing stopping anyone having a positive outlook. It's not something we get a education on. It's not something that we have to study. It's not anything. You can change your outlook and your perspective very quickly. So yeah, I completely agree.
So there is also one famous speech. Tim Ferriss had two famous speeches on TED Talks, and one of them was about fears. One of them was learn anything, and then one was about fear. And he has a lot of things that can go wrong. So he planned his first 3 months or 4 months vacation, and he had a lot of fears that tax legal advisors, so they will close the company. A lot of taxes will be on his accounts. They will put fines, and so his business will fail. And so he wrote down his fears, and then he found out that a lot of them was not so frightful. So what is your take on fighting through your fears?
I think you just got to do it. Again, I give it that perspective. Anytime that I've been afraid of something and I've done it, I've realized it's never as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm one of those, though, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm one of those where I'll do something without thinking about it often, but actually that's probably what gets me through it. But it's weird. I've not got, it's funny as well. I'm a parent now, I've got a kid that's 3 years old. My fears, I'm generally not terrified of anything apart from if it interacts with him and my son. It's really weird. Like I generally, if you told me someone's going to come in and beat me up right now, that doesn't really bother me. But if you told me that he's going to be in the house, completely different level of fear. So for a lot of things, I think it's just more maybe myself. I'm not really like as I said, I've always learned that on the other side of fear, things are generally quite all right. They're never as bad as you seem. Anything, actually, you get a bit of an adrenaline kick from it. But I also know in my, I wouldn't say older age, but just where I'm at right now, I prioritize fear slightly different to how I used to, and I've got a different relationship with it.
And so let's come back to sales. And what do you think? Why are people not successful? What they have most mistakes, and what they fear the most?
So why people aren't successful is they're not educated at it. A majority of people who do sales try doing it without any education or any form of like understanding how sales works. Sales is like a skill. If I gave you a pen and a pencil, let's go for pencil, and a bit of paper and told you to draw, your drawings would be okay. And over a period of time, yes, they might get better. But if I gave you a pencil and a pad and paper and a coach for maybe 1 hour every single week, something tells me that you get pretty good at drawing over a period of time. So I think sales is one of those where, as a human instinct, we feel like we don't need to get coaching on it. We don't need to get better at it. We don't need to seek advice on it. We don't need to speak to people about how we get better at it. We wing it. And actually, the problem with doing that is sometimes the measure of a good sales call is really damaging. Let me give you an example. Yeah, get coaching. I think the biggest thing is you don't know how good you are until you speak to someone who knows what they're doing. And as I said, a lot of people measure a sales call by did the person buy or not, where actually you learn the most from ones where they don't buy. And if you go for where people buy, I could pick the phone up to someone who just is 100% wanting whatever I'm offering. It doesn't make a difference about my sales ability. They'll buy, and then I'll assume that that person in that call was like the measure, the benchmark. So I'll start thinking that that's what I should do. Problem is, when I do that, actually, it's never, it starts creeping in bad habits. It's all of these things that start happening from it. So yeah, coaching is the biggest thing to kind of answer that question, is try and seek people that can help you out, role playing, all of these things, and where you can. And the difference between not a very good salesperson and being a good salesperson is generally just a bit of coaching. But you've got to realize a majority of people are here. They're not very good. They don't know what they're doing. So by being here, you'll see a huge, we're talking significant amounts of closing of sales.
So then maybe you can just give me advice, and you know me for a while, you see my posts and my podcast already, and we talked for a while. Maybe can you give me like a plan for the next for this year?
Yeah.
So what areas of my business, as I'm installing some chatbots now and going to talk to some clients and starting cold outreach with instantly, I think in September, and getting ready our offer website for this, because yesterday we had our first video testimonial for our service, very nice testimonial from our biggest client. So what do you think, what I should be concentrated on?
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you enjoy doing it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's the first question, is to make sure that you enjoy doing it. The second thing I'd say then is, if you started doing it already, focus on what you're learning in the sense of the outcomes. So not how you're doing it. That's all right. Use that as kind of like a business systemization process, so you can learn how to do the operational sides. But realistically, just focus on the outcome. I always use this. Cool. What was it like before your solution, and what does it look like now? Like if it was a before and after, what would that look like? Prepare as much as possible in the sense of how you can communicate that with people. And what I mean by that is, there are probably lots of people that have the same challenge that are before, at the stages, before your solution. Cool. Really understand their pain points, their problems, what behaviors are they feeling? How many hours are they losing? What would they do? Start collecting as much of this information as possible. Then just do your marketing and your outreach and everything to promise people that you can get them away from that and to whatever solution you've implemented before. So if you want a strategy, my point would be is talk to people, just talk to people about that problem, find out as much as you can. Again, I'm going to quote Eric. We've discussed it already enough in here. Eric's got a brilliant quote, which is that make the people's problems more important than your solution. And I couldn't agree with it more, which is spend time and enjoy spending time. Don't just rush this in just uncovering problems. And if people would even pay for those problems, if people would invest in getting those problems fixed, the impact of these problems, what are these problems doing to people logically and emotionally, as I discussed earlier on. The more time you spend in this, the more money you'll make. Because the more time you spend in this, people will understand that you understand their problems, and they'll want to work with you because you're a facilitator at fixing those problems. Where on the flip side of the coin is, if you just rush this part and go straight to the solution, you'll start selling to people and they'll go, yeah, that's great, but that's not even a problem of mine. Yeah, that's not even that important to me. So my biggest strategy is enjoy. If you enjoy the chatbot thing, brilliant, that's great. But actually try and enjoy the problem solving part and the market research even more than that solution, and you'll be very successful.
Yeah, actually I spent, so I don't touch the technical side almost never for the last couple of months. And, so I have talks all the day. Thank you for reassuring me that I'm doing the right thing, and to concentrate on the outcomes, the operational quality. And so there are, even yesterday I had a new person who addressed me and he offered his services, and I think I will invite him in my team, because I have a lot of people working part-time with me, but I like it, and so our team is growing, and with a little actually obligation from our side, because we work on a project based on a project, and I like people, I trust them from the first talk. Like I talk to people. Yesterday I talked to one person and said, oh, you talk. I like how you talk. Let's go to pro. I switched. I offered him 2 projects to work on. So we have quite a lot of things going here. But on a small scale, I hope to will grow as with the help of your coaching as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know, these
Yeah.
things can take ages. But as long as you kind of stick to the process and keep working at it, you can't lose effectively. But no, yeah, definitely. Hopefully, I can help.
Thank you, Andrew. So next 4 days I will spend on the road driving, and I spend time in Sofia and then in other cities. So tomorrow I will leave and hope to see you again in September when I come back. Thank you so
Perfect.
much for the call.